This is part 2 of Progress and Controversy, J.J. Hoff, Steve Piplinski's presentation on J.J. Hoff. There was little in the way of local government in those days. Hoff performed many functions that today we regard as the role of government. He built roads. For a time, Highway 32 north of Pulaski to Krakow was known as Hoff's Road. Newspaper accounts tell of Hoff constructing a turnpike road to connect Sobieski with Krakow. Here are a couple of ads that ran in the Oconto County Reporter. The one on the left from 1899 solicits bids to build 4 miles of roads near Sobieski. It notes that some of the work will be contracted by the town of Little Suamico and some by J.J. Hoff. I also found it interesting that Hoff put in a plug for the Michigan Stump Puller. I'll speculate that the enterprising Hoff stood to make a commission on any stump puller sales that might result. On the right, an ad from 1902 solicits teams of horses for road building. Hoff hired contractors to build bridges. Much of this was at his own expense. You can see the parallels between his efforts and those of modern developers who create subdivisions and sell lots. This article illustrates how he worked to tie his Polish colonies together and build a sense of community. These settlements needed retailers to furnish food and clothing, as well as sawmills for building supplies. In 1898, Hoff did a bit of industrial development when, in an effort to attract a sawmill and lumber yard, he built roads and offered land to build upon. It was only 2 months later that an entrepreneur took him up on the offer and started a lumber business. By now, you may be thinking, wow, this guy was a great humanitarian. Are we talking about St. J.J. Hoff? That's certainly a bit of overstatement. Remember, we're talking about a land developer in the Gilded Age, a man who sold ignorant immigrants cut-over forest and swamp as prime farmland. By 1895, when he married his third wife, the Oconto County Reporter newspaper stated that he owned about 60,000 acres. He was a man of his times, and they were raucous times. He had parlayed the $1 per acre commission he earned as an employee of the General Land Company into his own real estate empire. We can look back 100 plus years later and marvel at how he built communities, but in the early 20th century, there was ample reason for the local establishment to resent and even demonize him. Consider this. Conservative Catholicism held the Polish communities together. Hoff, though, was a Norwegian Lutheran. Besides that, he was twice divorced and had married his third wife. Add to this the fact that he valued community building by drawing the diverse elements together more than he valued adhering to traditional religious values. With this in mind, I had to chuckle the first time I saw this. Regarding the picnic held Sunday at Sobieski, which was greatly misrepresented throughout, I will state that it was not a church affair. The trustees and pastors of the Catholic Church, under whose auspices the picnic was advertised to take place, knew nothing of this phase of it. The famous black bass fishing was not for the benefit of the church, as J.J. Hoff, the owner of the lake, charged $1 for each fish caught, and for his own benefit. I wish to state further that I had nothing to do with this affair. Yours truly, Reverend W.B. Polachek. I wonder if Hoff was upset by this letter. Maybe not. I was curious about the circumstance of this historical dust-up. Fortunately, there is some record in newspaper articles of the time. Here is the backstory of this remarkable letter. Perhaps it was his wife's influence. This marriage announcement states that Hoff's new wife, the former Mrs. Burtis, had experience in the resort business. Hoff had created a park-like setting with an artificial pond fed by an artesian well on the property that included the Sobieski real estate office. That would present the Hoffs with a dual opportunity: promote Sobieski as a destination resort while giving local residents a chance to get to know each other. The Oconto County Reporter newspaper, as well as the Green Bay Semi-Weekly, published articles about the event. There must have been extensive planning for this picnic. For example, the subheading states that a target shooting competition had been arranged between Oconto and Green Bay gun clubs. Numerous prizes were offered. Though fishing season was closed, the article pointed out that since it was a private lake, the state regulations wouldn't apply. Hoff had arranged for a special passenger car to be attached to the early morning freight run with an unscheduled stop at Sobieski. Return transportation by train would also be available. Flyers were distributed touting the event. The flyers included the line, "For the benefit of the local church." Unfortunately, the local church was not on board. The bishop of the Green Bay Diocese, J.J. Fox, registered his objections as reported in this article. He disputes the assertion that was in the flyer that the picnic was for the benefit of the church. He makes it clear that the church was not involved and that he objects to such an event being held on a Sunday. I found it interesting that when reporting the bishop's objections, the newspaper included the full text of the flyer. The modern dictum that there is no such thing as bad publicity seems to have held true even then. Once again, here's Reverend Polachek's letter. Although we may find it amusing today to see this controversy playing out in the print media of the day, at the turn of the 19th century, priests were important authority figures in the Polish Catholic communities of Huffa Park, Pulaski, Krakow, and Sobieski. I'd like to extend a special thank you to Mike Brzezinski for giving me permission to use his extensive research on the life of J.J. Hoff. Mike provided me with a large collection of Hoff-related newspaper clippings as well as photos of Hoff and his crew. Thank you, Mike.